Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is Ambassador Katherine Tai. She is the U.S. Trade Representative. Thank you very much for being on the France 24 set.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you're part of the first U.S. Official delegation to come to France since the roll over the submarine deal with Australia. We heard Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, yes, the U.S. should have done better at communicating. But in France here, the feeling is it's not so much about communication. This was betrayal, a stab in the back. How do you react to that?
Well, I want to begin by affirming history, which is that France is America's oldest friend and ally.
Which is why there was this feeling of betrayal.
Absolutely. But this is a friendship that has endured the test of time over literally hundreds of years. And we're a younger country. So that is our entire existence. And from before we were the United States, I have every confidence that this friendship and this partnership will endure, I hope, for several hundred years more because of the commitment that we have to working through our issues, to this friendship and partnership, and because our ability to continue to understand each other and work together is going to be critical to our ability to prosper into the future.
Right. Those are very nice words, but the French want acts. They want action. What can you offer of France, the Europeans, very concretely in your area? I mean, we know there are some tariffs that were slapped on the European Union and so on. Will there be a gesture maybe to try to lift them, for example?
So from day one of President Biden's presidency, he has made clear the priority he places on the transatlantic relationship. And that's why I'm here in Paris this week. And that's why I will be here in Europe.
To try to repair it.
It's a demonstration of the commitment that has been there from the beginning of this administration. So, for example, in June, we had the US-EU summit at which the United States and the European Union agreed to settle a 16-year dispute between us at the WTO on Boeing and Airbus. And as a result of that, tariffs came down. And as a result of that also, we've committed to working together on shared challenges in the aerospace sector that's going to benefit our companies and our workers. I also want to point out that the Trade and Technology Council that was established at the summit just met for the first time last week.
In Pittsburgh.
And in Pittsburgh. And I also want to share with you and all of your viewers the success of that interaction in terms of the depth of the conversation that we are setting up to have and the cooperation and energy that is going to come out of that in terms of the U.S. and Europe finding ways to work together on challenges that we share with respect to technology in our economy and also with respect to competition from non-market economies.
But what about the tariffs on steel and aluminum? Very concrete. Again,
yes.
Are they going to be lifted? Will there be a deal with the European Union?
I'm glad you raised that as well, because that is my third example. We are working very hard.
The deadline is very soon.
The deadline is soon, yes,
so
absolutely.
Will there be a
deal?
I
very much hope so, and that is what we are working towards. But let me put that in context as well, which is that we are collectively facing a global overcapacity problem that is distorting the market for producers here in Europe and also in the United States. So what we need to do around the steel and aluminum tariffs is, again, to understand each other, to put our work in the context of the larger challenges so that we can take down the temperature between us and collectively link arms to address the larger problem that we are both facing.
So there will be a deal.
I sure hope so.
I want to get to China. Obviously, you've conducted a thorough review of China, and you've decided to re-engage China on a trade issue. You're supposed to meet at least virtually the Chinese vice premier. Why do you extend the hand to China despite a record that's not exactly stellar when it comes to trade policies?
Well, we've had a lot of questions about whether or not we are headed towards a Cold War, whether or not we are in a Cold War. And I think that...
the answer is yes?
The answer is no, and that's why we must engage. That's why we have to have a bilateral relationship between the U.S. and China.
But is this meeting going to happen? And are you hopeful that there'll be solutions? Because there have been rumors that instead of an olive branch, you would slap further sanctions on China or further tariffs. I mean, is this off the table right now?
Well, I think that is the point of engaging, which is to see if we can understand each other better. And we have taken steps in a speech I gave earlier this week to lay out the U.S. Vision for how we will take steps to responsibly manage the competition and the challenges between the U.S. and Chinese economies.
Right. In the meantime, the tariffs that were put in place by the Trump administration remain in place just for a few exemptions. So it means that the Trump administration was right and that you're keeping them because you agree with what was done, correct?
Well, there are a lot of pieces of your logic and connective tissue there. So let me just
my
cut
logic
through.
wrong?
Let me say this. As with steel and aluminum, where there is, as a fact, a global distortive practice that is affecting our industries, with respect to China, there is a significant imbalance in our trading relationship. And I laid this out in my speech earlier this week around the impact of China's very muscular and extremely effective industrial policies on economies like the United States, which are open and market-based. And that is also true for the types of impacts that those policies have on economies like Europe, which is why a large part of the program that we are looking to partner with Europe on is how we can collaborate, how we can work together to address the challenges that face both of us.
Do you think China will be a fair player, or and is this the last hope to basically bring it into the fold of, the way trade is conducted by a Western country?
So first, that's why the conversations with China will be so important in terms of assessing the attitude and the...
Is it the last chance, basically, for them to...
I think that if you've listened to my speech, I think that we are very clear-eyed in terms of the patterns that we have seen. And many governments and stakeholders have hoped and have worked to bring China into the community of countries and economies that have adopted these open market norms. And we have not seen that is the trajectory that China is on.
You're hoping to change that?
No, I'm hoping to manage that.
What do you mean manage that? I mean, you have to change it. If you say that's not the right way to do trade, you have to change that, right?
Well, whether or not that changes is not just up to us. It's not just up to Europe. It is really about choices that China is going to make. And if China is not going to make those choices, then the challenge that we have is how do we respond? How do we nevertheless take steps to effectively defend the interests of our economies, our workers, our businesses, our farmers, and our opportunity to thrive in a world economy where we will be continuing to compete and coexist?
I want to get to the revelation of the so-called Pandora Papers. And what we've learned is that in addition to states like Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming, there is a state in the U.S., South Dakota, where apparently billions of dollars are in trust, and there's very little information. And they're essentially accusing those papers, the U.S., of having tax havens on its soil and not doing enough to fight the issue. What is your reaction to those revelations, and what should be done about this loophole, it would seem?
Well, I think that the president has been clear from day one, and it's been clear in his policy proposals during his presidency, that it is a priority to bring more transparency to the U.S. financial system and, frankly, the world financial system. You will also see that the president has prioritized the issue of corruption as a national security issue. And so I think that in this regard as well, there is opportunity for this transatlantic relationship to work towards bringing more transparency to our financial and our economic systems, including in trade.
Right. But for instance, I mean, yes, it's nice to say we're going to fight corruption and tax havens, but isn't there a need to address it, first of all, at home before accusing others of behaving badly? I mean, is the administration planning to do something about those states that have very loose regulations and allow some people tied to human rights abuses or even criminal gangs, according to the Pandora Papers, to have accounts in the U.S.?
So again, I'll refer to the policy proposals of this administration, and then I'll also refer to my good, smart, and hardworking colleagues in the Treasury Department in terms of all of the policies that they are working on to address just those issues, both at home and abroad.
Ambassador Katherine Tai, I want to thank you very much for being with us here on the France 24 interview. Thank you for watching it, and stay tuned for more news.